Hey, thanks for watching 4Color Commentary. I'm Mark Allen, and this is the second installment of Star-Crossed Stories, the video series about the Marvel DC crossover events, starting with the first one that we did a couple of months ago, Superman vs. Spider-Man, published in 1976. Well, the second one, and at that point, my favorite, this one is, to me, the better of the two, the initial two offerings. This is Superman and Spider-Man. They left out the verses. There was no obligatory fight scene in the beginning. This was just a straight team-up story. But Superman and Spider-Man, and so you've got, as you can see on there, you've got Dr. Doom and the Parasite as the main villains, which back then some fans probably thought that was kind of a strange choice, seeing as how Dr. Doom was primarily a Fantastic Four villain, though he had fought Spider-Man before, and the Parasite was one of Superman's more minor villains. But all that aside, you also had the wonderful, fan-pleasing first-time meeting and confrontation between the Incredible Hulk and Superman, and as well, just thrown in for good measure, a little bit of a throwdown between Spider-Man and Wonder Woman. Not as much, that one not as memorable as this one, of course, but great stuff. And I love how they did this fight. Just so you know, this confrontation, they did it in such a way that even though this was the planet-moving Superman, the godlike Superman, they left the outcome in question and left the question hanging there. Could Superman really defeat the Hulk, since the stronger the matter the Hulk gets, the stronger the Hulk gets. So, they handled that very well. But whereas the first Marvel DC crossover was had that DC house feeling, even though it was written by Jerry Conway and drawn by Ross Andru, both of whom had worked on The Amazing Spider-Man. They had also worked on Superman. And so they knew how to make a book feel like a DC book. To me, Superman vs. Spider-Man, published in 1976, always felt like a DC project. It just did. It was still great. It was entertaining with those popular villains, the most popular villains of each character at the time, Lex Luthor and Dr. Octopus. It was a fun story. It was a good story. It was memorable, however, for its uniqueness, something that had never been done before. This one was really more story-driven, I think. And I'm not going to give away any of the plot, but Dr. Doom was a great choice considering how he was used. And it was really just very cool seeing Superman show up in the Latvian embassy, just basically to let Doom know, I'm watching you. I'm watching you, Buster, as Superman drops in on the Latvian embassy and let's Doc Doom know what the score is. So, let's talk about creative. Since we talked about Conway and Andru in the first one, this one is the scripted by Jim Shooter with a script assist by Marv Wolfman, who was, of course, at the time in 1981 going great guns on the New Teen Titans and doing great, becoming a fan favorite on that. But you also had interior pencils by John Buscema, and then this beautiful cover with a layout by John Romita Sr. and painted by Bob Larkin. Just that is one of my all-time favorite covers, and just great. I would love to have. I don't even know what the original art has ever sold for, or if it's sold, but wouldn't you love to have that framed on your wall at home? But anyway, just great stuff. But listen, whereas the first DC Marvel crossover felt like a DC house project, this felt very much like a Marvel project, and here's why. Of course, script by Jim Shooter, pencils by John Buscema, the figures inked by Joe Sinnott, longtime Marvel inker, and then backgrounds inked by Terry Austin, Claus Janson, Bob McLeod, Al Milgrom, Steve Lealoha, Walt Simonson, Bob Layton, Joe Rubenstein, and Bob Wycheck. I mean, you've got all these Marvel house artists working on this book. No wonder it felt like a Marvel project. And so it was very much Marvel, with DC overseeing, of course. And that's just a great book. But part of the coolness factor of this is, again, you've got the respective casts and everything included in there as well. You've got Clark Kent going to work for the Daily Bugle and having to endure J. Jonah Jameson. Whereas you also have Peter Parker going to work for the Daily Planet and being very pleasantly surprised by his new boss Perry White. And so just neat stuff, neat interactions like that. You also get to see Steve Lombard play a practical joke on Peter Parker, and Peter Parker getting him back in the inimitable, I can't say that word, in the undeniable Spider-Man fashion. So anyway, just a great book. You also had, as far as the extras, you have on the inside front cover, you have the respective origin stories of each character with art. Very cool stuff there. And whereas in the first issue, or in the first, in the first DC Marvel crossover, Superman versus Spider-Man, you had you had that page showing the progression of a cover, the 4 different pictures of the cover as it progressed. Here, unfortunately, we only have one picture of a previous cover concept, but it's still very cool. And that one actually is by John Buscema, and that was the initial cover concept. But I like what they went with here, letting Romita Sr. get in on the gig, and that Bob Larkin painting is just amazing. But and then you do have a large house ad for each company. Of course, personally, I think they could have left that out. There's the large DC ad, and of course the large Marvel ad. I think they could have left that out for more art and story, or for more behind the scenes goodies, but hey, they didn't ask me. So anyway, there you go. Spider-Man, Superman, and Spider-Man. Great team up book. Great DC Marvel fantasy crossover. Not canon, of course, but just a great crossover. And it is a star-crossed story. And these are still readily available, though lately they've been going up more and more. But any copy you can get, even if it's well read, if it's still together and all of it's there, it's a great read. You won't be sorry. Certainly if you are a long-time Marvel or DC fan and you've never read this, do yourself a favor. Go out there and find it. It's a star-crossed story. Go out and find it. And thanks for watching 4 Color Commentary.